Good Friday morning. It's November 6th, 2020. I'm Guy McPherson of GuyMcPherson.com, which will take you to Nature Batch Last. I'm going to provide a few headlines from the last few days up to this morning as the stock markets open in the United States, and then provide an indication of where the markets are headed. The crazy markets are headed. First, a headline that goes back to Tuesday, November 3rd, from Science Alerts. MIT team's cough detector identifies 97% of COVID-19 cases, even in asymptomatic people. This is remarkable and quite a stunning scientific step on the path towards identifying people who are sick. Speaking of COVID-19, from CNN Business a couple of days ago, no matter who wins the election, America will still be in a jobs crisis. Speaking of COVID-19, from CNN yesterday, the U.S. just reported more than 100,000 new COVID-19 infections, the most cases in a single day since pandemic's start. And actually it's nearly 103,000 new cases. So that's a lot. Speaking of COVID-19, from the Wall Street Journal, Americans were given the coronavirus option to raid their 401k. Most didn't, which makes me ponder a little bit. And then you read the subhead. And the subhead is, low-income workers who would be most likely to tap a retirement savings account are least likely to have one. Poor people can't tap into the bank account they don't have. For the third time in the last week or two, and I've reported on numbers 10 and 11, this from CNN Business, mortgage rates hit a record low for the 12th time this year. Here we are in the 11th month, just started the 11th month, and mortgage rates hit a record low for the 12th time. I reported on the 10th and 11th time previously on the videos in this space. Speaking of COVID-19, but not really. This is a fascinating case from Truthout. Deutsche Bank may seize Trump's assets if he loses and fails to repay debt. And I would say it's increasingly likely that he will lose and that he will fail to repay debt. So, Trump has long relied heavily on the German-based financial giant, and he currently owes the bank about $340 million. $340 million. That's a lot of money. This is where it gets interesting. Trump had a series of bankruptcies and defaults in the 90s. So Deutsche Bank continued to lend the president more than $2 billion over 2 decades, including hundreds of millions of dollars even after he sued Deutsche Bank for, quote, predatory lending practices. You're going to lend this man money? You deserve exactly what you get. Are you serious? Think about it. If you, say you have $4 billion, and somebody comes up to you and calls you all kinds of bad names and accuses you of predatory practices, are you going to loan them hundreds of millions of dollars? Only if you're stupid. From the Wall Street Journal, BP, that's the petroleum company, BP, stricken by low oil prices and high debt, to sell London headquarters. Even BP is in trouble as the price of oil continues to stay low. They bought this office block in London about almost 2 decades ago when it looked like expensive oil was here forever and the oil companies would be in complete control of everything important that happened on Earth. But no, BP had a market capitalization of about $55 billion and had $40.4 billion worth of debt. Again, can you imagine having that much debt and still continuing business as usual because you own the world? I can't even imagine that, even if I did own the world. and I don't. Speaking of COVID-19, from Fox Business, Wall Street euphoric as blue wave seen as unlikely, making progressive change more difficult. Now, 2 days ago, it looked like there was going to be a blue wave and the markets were euphoric about it. Now it looks like there's not going to be a blue wave and the markets are euphoric about that. Maybe the markets are just euphoric because it's business as usual continuing. In fact, here's a quote from the article at Fox Business. If current projections are correct, we will have a Democratic president and Republican Senate, which is a positive catalyst for the equity markets. Wall Street is breathing a sigh of relief now that more regulation and progressive fiscal policies are seemingly off the table. We can't be fixing anything that's broken in this country, or the billionaires won't be able to make a few more $1 billion and hold on to their privilege for a little bit longer. Hold the phones. Breaking news. This just out from CNN. More state officials announce restrictions as U.S. tops 100,000 new COVID-19 infections for second day in a row. The subhead, the U.S. reported more than 121,000 infections Thursday, beating a daily case record it set just 24 hours ago. That one, as I already indicated here, was nearly 103,000 cases. This is an additional 121,000 infections. This is huge. You might even say bigly, if you were so inclined. And finally, in the news that really, really, really matters for all life on Earth, Arctic time capsule from 2018 washes up in Ireland as polar ice melts. This from The Guardian yesterday, November 5th, 2020. The cylinder, this time capsule, was left in the ice by a ship called 50 Years of Victory. And 2 years later, it washes up on the shore in Ireland, in County Donegal specifically. So that's working nicely. So this is the news that really matters. We're in the midst of abrupt, irreversible climate change. The Arctic ice is melting, and that means in the very near term, loss of habitat for humans, and therefore all life on Earth. But good news, usually, as you know, I don't wear a t-shirt, and normally I wouldn't wear a t-shirt that suggests I'm a dinosaur, much less a triceratops, although it's nice enough to be a triceratops. But this shirt is a gift from a friend who visited some 8 months ago from Norway. And she sent this beautiful shirt, which arrived in the mail yesterday, as well as beautiful postcards from Norway. So thanks, Marianne. And thanks everybody for listening and watching. Now then, to the markets. All the indices are down slightly, with the Dow leading the way down 60 points, NASDAQ down 41. This at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Time. It's enough to drive a man to drink all this anti-masking nonsense from people in the United States, isn't it, buddy? What are you going to do?